Art Life All Day. What's up, everybody? This is DTM Delta Tango Mike. You can always find me at Delta Tango Mike. It is the Wednesday World of Vectors, or World of Vectors, or Wednesday Vectors, however you want to call it. On Wednesdays, we talk about vector art. Most of the time is Illustrator or Fresco, one of my favorite apps in the whole wide world. Sketchable is almost neck to neck with that. And so today we have a super special guest, so we're gonna bring him on in a second after we give the shout outs. We got a lot of shout outs to give out, especially for all the folks hanging out in the Discord. You want to join us in the Discord? The link is in the description of the video. Come on in. It's free to join and hang out and have a good time with other artists. We have Bree, Danette, D, RB, and Triple X hanging out in the Discord and on the chat on Behance. I already got some cool folks saying what's up, starting with D. She was first. D made it first in the chat. What can I do? She made it. Rob, what's up, Rob? Gareth in the house. What's up, Gareth? SLP Price. And then let's see, Misty also made it. What's up, Misty? And Ken, what's up? What's good, DTN, says Ken. Well, what is good is art, art, art. And so I'm very excited to bring you this awesome guest. I'm going to show you his face. Boom, there he is. His Instagram is Chocolate Soup. Say hello.
I'll do.
There you go. What's up, DaCosta? His name is DaCosta, and but Chocolate Soup is the Instagram. Tell us about you. Where are you from? Who are you? What do you do?
Story. Well, I'm me. So my name DaCosta. Chocolate Soup is the name, as Dan said. So basically, I'm actually was born in the Caribbean, and then lived in Canada all my life. So I'm coming to you from the north of the 49th. And then I'm just an illustrator, character creator with an obsession with robots. That's who I am all day, really. Currently, actually doing some for my clients, the art director for his Sense Labs, a cool company, doing some stuff. So I do some general tech talk, talking about art gear all day.
Nice. And tell us about the affinity for robots, because that's how I noticed your work. Well, I noticed your work a long time ago because you got skills. But ever since I've been following your work, robots. What is the deal with the robots?
Yeah, you know what? I can't remember. I think it was funny that did you know Sartanis, Mike Henry?
Mm-hmm.
Back in the day, I mean, I don't know how many years ago this was. Maybe 10 years ago, at least 10 years ago, maybe 15 years ago. Mike hit me up. He was doing this thing called the Tay Project, all about hands, and so basically the idea was just to draw a hand of whatever style you want. And I said, okay, so I actually drew a robot hand, and I think it was the only or first robot hand to be submitted. So that was, I think, the kind of the first part of it. That's when I first met Mike, and then I just kind of really dialed into the robot thing. I realized that that's kind of my deal. Robots are interesting to me because I think they're the one. Well, I know they're the one thing in genre that's actually real, right? Like vampires, dinosaurs, all that stuff. That's never going to happen, right? You know what I mean? But aliens, you know what I mean? But robots, those are the things that have come out of genre and actually are part of our life now. So that I think that's fascinating. And I grew up watching Astro Boy. I love the struggle of the robot to try to become more human. That's always the interesting story for me, So I think that, and then the robots on top of that, trying to find their place in the world is an interesting struggle. It says a lot about, kind of as a metaphor, kind of for us and our growth creatively and just our existence in general.
Nice. That's good. That's a good observation. I never really thought about it like that. Rob says, "Hey, fellow Canuck." Is that something y'all guys say to each other?
Canuck. Yeah, we're Canucks. Yeah, we're Canucks. All right.
All right, cool. Well, there you go, Rob. I didn't know you was in Canada yourself or from Canada. So I never really thought about robots like that because I want to be half a robot. Like I want robot parts. I want like an extra arm or two, so and maybe an extra eyeball somewhere, so I can do like two drawings at one time. I wanna Ghost in the Shell type of stuff, a type of deal.
Yeah, that's what you need. That's the whole point. The Matrix style. You just jack in and learn a new technique, and then boom, you just draw it.
That's right. I'm a master now. That's it.
I
download the.
think it'd be nice to have that kind of that level of skill acquisition. You know.
Very cool. And so, do you remember the early days when you first started to sketch and draw? How old were you, and what kind of drawings were you doing then?
Probably the only thing I really always remember is my mother she worked at a company and they did an art contest, and I think I was 5. I submitted a drawing. I believe it was something like Huey, Louie, and Dewey, or some weird thing. I can't remember exactly, but it was. I was into DuckTales back then. You know what I mean? And it had. Remember, I think it was a couple of drawings, but one had a cannon in a fall day, and then somebody blowing. You could see your breath. That's all I remember. But I think I remember winning the contest for some reason. Even that's kind of my thing. And drawing was always the thing I did when I was a kid. That kind of made everything easier. You know what I mean? It was my calm place. I wasn't out. I grew up in the suburbs in Mississauga, so I was out in the forest playing ninja all day. But when I wasn't doing that, I was drawing. Right. So that was the thing that made me feel good. I mean, I was allowed to draw on my walls. Did a big mural. My cousin always reminds me of the mural I did of Castle Grayskull.
Okay. That's cool.
Yeah. Wow. I wish I had pictures of that back, because he goes on and on about it even to today. So that was pretty amazing stuff. But for me at the time to be able to do that, no one ever questioned. Like, I never got in trouble for drawing. Never.
That's cool. That's good. That's good. So they saw you dedicating your time into it, and like, let him do his thing. So does that mean that in school you took art classes, or did you follow up? Did your parents help you follow up with other learning for art?
No, I think I was a pretty independent kid. I think that I was always just pretty much a loner most of the time. So I was always in the art class. I think I remember it in grade 7. I did the mural of our logo, like the school logo, I think it was a panther on the wall by the office. I was asked to do that, and then we had a thing in grade 6, grade 7, grade 8, where we got an elective. We could do what we want with a period. So I ended up doing animation, teaching myself animation in the art room. So when all the kids were out doing whatever, I just was in the art room by myself. So that I was super happy just to draw stuff. And I did some silly animation of a Bengal tiger's head opening up and his jaw dropped down, and there was a guy inside with a movie camera. That's just all things on this crazy light box that I had built with a 100-watt bulb, and it was so hot. I was still burning my knuckles when I was doing the layers, right? Anyway, that's what I remember. So I've always been that way. And then the art thing was just about me doing the art thing. I don't think it wasn't a discussion like, oh, your son is talented, you should blah blah blah. I don't remember those things being part of that conversation. But I did go to high school in Ontario, and I had a great art teacher through grade 9 when I first got there. And then he was awesome. When I was in grade 9, he was teaching me grade 12 stuff.
Okay.
So he would teach me how to use like the machine in the back for doing silk screens and burning all the stuff and just doing all the process. So he would give me assignments and give me advanced grades, so I had time to do all this other stuff. That was fun to kind of do that, and he was the first person I remember very clearly supporting what I was doing.
Did you think in those days, or did you have the feeling that you wanted to be a professional artist when you grew up, or did you want to be an astronaut and say, I'm just gonna draw some robots now that I'm
No. I think when I was 5, I wanted to be a fireman or something. But I don't think I've ever had a path that's other than art. I always thought like art was. Didn't think of it as a career. I was doing stuff that was kind of like that because I did some design work and whatnot for people that I thought was interesting, but I didn't think of it as a professional thing until I got out of high school, actually. So that was I just liked doing it all the time. Like I said, there was a period where I wasn't doing it because as a freelancer, it wasn't really paying any money. So I actually got into personal training and doing a lot of stuff then. But
Okay.
I kind of left it. But then I got back and I realized that I should get back to that because that was the thing that, like I said before, it was the thing that really made me happy. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? So I
Mm-hmm.
could get lost for hours and hours on end.
Mm-hmm. I believe it. Looking at this piece right here, this one, Captain of the Guard. If the Roman Empire had lasted long enough to meet mechs, to have mechs, like your mind has to have traveled to the Roman Empire to figure out what kind of gear the guard was wearing, and then give it that twist, and then go slow and add in all the shading and the extra colors and find your color palette. Man, that can't that must take some time.
And I'm glad you like the piece. Some of this stuff I'm just making it up. There's a lot of stuff I do as much as it's very much my style. I'm just that's just me doing DaCosta all day. But it's funny that sometimes I pick weird angles or I do something and I just kind of let the drawing be what it wants to be. You know what I mean, as much as I want to pay attention to composition or something, I just love having fun with something and see what's going to happen with the drawing. You know what I
Hmm.
mean? Does that make sense? Of that,
Yeah. Hmm.
I don't have a grand plan when I start out most of the time, especially when it's not when it's not for a client. I'm
Hmm.
not really thinking, so it's kind of the
Right.
challenge of how do I wrangle my brain, because
Hmm.
that's part of the magic of one of the things that helped me with art was the fact I have ADHD, so that the whole idea of I didn't find out until I was 25. So that answered a whole bunch of questions, of course, and then it opened up a whole box of other questions. But
Hmm.
that was one of the things that allowed me to be able to do multiple things at the same time and keep track of all these ideas. You know,
Nice.
I love history in looking at civilizations and what they were able to accomplish
Hmm.
with way less than what we think is necessary to accomplish these things.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so I mean, these are fascinating to me, and I love looking at all different aspects, especially anything that talks about like culture, and connects that, because the robot thing is obviously immediately devoid of culture. So if you can incorporate something and it tells a story on that side, that any instant or any connection or reference to a cultural point obviously automatically starts to lend story to what you're doing. It doesn't matter if it's robots or anything else,
Hmm.
but you draw the same character and change the wardrobe, all of a sudden you're telling a different story.
Right. Right. And so, talking about story and characters, do all these characters have a story? Do you keep track of your characters, or you just spin them out as they come and figure it out later?
Yeah, I just spit them out, but as it's going, there isn't a character that doesn't get a story, right? Because I mean, all the as I'm going along, say like this guy here's like, he's the ninja, so
Hmm.
obviously that kind of lends itself, Japan and blah blah blah. So then, as I'm building it out, and then I try to write a caption that tells a little bit of a story for each character. So I'm always thinking about decisions I need to make to tell, this character is doing this. Like, why does that character like Pop Tarts?
Hmm.
Whatever it is,
Hmm.
it's got to look and feel like it makes sense.
Hmm. And
I keep track of all of them. I like to tell the story. I mean, stories are amazing. It's nice. It adds a nice layer. You can start to infer a deeper sense of something happening
hmm.
outside of the frame of what you've drawn,
Right.
even
Right.
if it's just a single character illustration.
Yeah. And so I like that you say you do keep track. Like, you can look back at your old sketch or old drawing and be like, oh, I remember this. I remember what I was thinking. Why is this certain elements made it to that drawing? Because they feel real to you, right? They feel like they exist.
Oh, no, Rashad, I think I like to do everything as if it's going to be an animated story. If it's there's going to be more to it. Like the camera's going to move, it's going to pull back. And there's
Hmm.
going to be the next. What's the next shot? What's the reveal? Right. So like this character, this weird drawing was just I think it was Inktober. I can't, or it's either Inktober or March of Robots. I can't remember. But the
Hmm.
point is, I just did it. I think the word was island. It might have been. I can't remember which one it was for. It might have been whatever the date on this one was. It'll tell you whether if it was in March. It was March or robots.
It's June.
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 Oh, well, okay.
Sci-fi
If this is
art.
from my, it's funny. If this is from my new account, that means nothing.
Okay.
So
that means it could have been done.
Right? Because I had to post it whenever I posted it because my new, that's when after the hack. So anyway, so the point is this island one was interesting because I had no idea what to do, and coming up with a story that kind of felt interesting. I'm not even sure why I went to this idea, but I think Mystery Island and kind of a floating island. I think I had seen something that the island of the Pacific plastic island that's out there.
Oh yeah.
Idea, but
right.
And so the idea of what's underneath it, and then what's kind of holding it together. There was a movie back in the day I used to watch. I watched when I was a kid, and it was just a steamboat with obviously with the passengers got caught up in this mist, and then they got caught in this bog of stuff, and then whatever the mass was, this floating kelpie thing was just alive. You know what I mean? So I think I remembered that.
Yeah.
So of course a lot of people died, whatever. But the fact is, I just like the idea of the island kind of luring people in as a respite, and then it's a robot, some kind of observational outpost, some kind of drone. I mean, and I like the bird because the bird's like
he's just
fake.
chilling. Yeah.
but it's a fake bird.
Oh yeah.
Right? Just another camera, right? It's another part of the allure to get you to come closer or pay no attention to the nonchalant island.
Yeah, and the island got them claws under the water, like ready to snatch you. Dang, you stuck. Rob says, wow, brilliant work. I used to trapeze through the bush in northern Saskatchewan too and draw for hours. I'd get lost in those two things.
Yeah, for sure. I've been trying to pull from nature a lot in some of my newer stuff that I'm working on. It's nice.
Yeah, there's got to be a lot of interesting life out there that we don't. When you live in the city, you don't even imagine or consider until you're in that space.
No, yeah.
Yeah. Odari says, very dope. What's up, Odari? Welcome to the stream. Here's a couple of pictures. I think these are from your coloring book.
Yeah.
And awesome artwork. So, let's talk about your tools. So when did you so I'm gonna assume you started traditional like a lot of kids do. And then what was your favorite traditional tools, and then when did you transition to digital? How'd that go?
So I think back in the day, I was always about the Pentel, nylon, the felt marker kind of idea, right? I think that was the big deal. And I remember back in the day when I used to do logos and just design work, it was always about designing something. Sometimes I do it small because small is interesting because there's a lot of stuff that happens small that is like a magic because it's just about the texture and the interplay between the pen or pencil and the surface of the paper. And then I would spend a lot of time going to the photocopy place and blowing stuff up. No, really. I mean, and then you got your black ink, and then you got the whiteouts, it's called graphic white to get rid of the mistakes. You know what I mean? There's no 2-finger tapping on this stuff. You got to actually, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you got to actually get rid of it. So that my thing was, it was really about the Copic markers. I mean, before even Copic marker came in, there was the chart packs. You use chart packs.
Yep.
You know what I mean? So xylene, I was out with the xylene before the alcohol based, before I switched over to Pantone, Letraset. And then from there, I mean, I discovered Copic markers, and then, dude, that was it. I have almost every Copic marker they make.
Okay.
So I swear, the last trip to Japan pre-COVID, I don't know. My wife was like, "You really need that many markers?" I was like, "Yeah." So because I'll buy a marker, I'll buy one color, and then I'll buy the color on the other side, right? The lighter, the darker, and then I'm gonna buy the refills for each color, right? So I mean, it's a half a second, and I got a mad grip of markers already.
Yeah.
So my switch over from, I think I got my first graphics tablet back in '95, and then I was digital for was kind of on and off. I mean, if it wasn't drawing in my sketchbook and then translating that out, I would just go and photocopy it and then take it in. Then I learned Illustrator. I think I learned Corel Draw first, actually, before I even discovered Illustrator. And then once I discovered Illustrator, it was goodbye Corel Draw. And then I spent a lot of time doing vector. I mean, for the most of my time, I was a vector guy, right? I was kind of vector guru. And I would always kind of get my stuff done. And then my drawing style mimicked very much vector stuff. So people sometimes couldn't tell if it was vector or whether it was a raster drawing. I like the clean look, you know what I mean? So yeah. I started doing a lot of stuff from the animation standpoint. So I would draw the rough, and then I would clean up the rough, and then I would clean up that rough, and clean up that rough, and tighten it up, and then get to inking it. I mean, I'd be doing the drawing 6 times by the time it got to the end. You know what I mean? So cause animation, you're just cleaning up.
Right.
So and then I was like, okay, well, I'm tired of seeing my own work by the time I finish it.
Yeah.
So I need to cut out some of that process, right? So yeah. I would just only recently I've been kind of, I would say recently, let's say in the last 5 years, I've been skipping a whole bunch of stuff and just getting straight to goods and letting it happen. So, especially since the iPad, kind of I just jump in. So doing things like this page, like this was a couple of years ago, March of Robots. Morton and Fez were some kind of random characters I came up with to try to tell a little bit of a story. That was at the top of COVID. So and I didn't even really get what COVID was happening at the time. So that the connection, the visual connection to this, and there was another drawing previous to that. I think the first drawing was a drawing. The drawing that I did of Morton, I think, was him with a globe and it had map pins all over it.
Let me see.
You know what I mean? But it happened. It's probably none of the ones I sent you. It's on my Instagram. Okay. It's on my old Instagram. But anyway, the point is, that was actually apparently it looked like, and I didn't know at the time, but it does. It looked like the coronavirus.
Ooh. Oh. Okay.
It's not. Yeah, I haven't haven't uploaded that one. But anyway, the point is that was the first time I did Morton and Fez. Fez is. I'm a Doctor Who nerd, right? I'm a Whovian for sure.
All right.
So the Fez, and I like the idea of a robot having a conscience, but it's like a hat, like an intelligent hat that, you know what I mean? It's another piece of hardware that he has to wear, like his inner voice, you know what I mean? So that the idea of telling that story of a robot who's just kind of rolling through life, and then we all have these dialogues in our head with ourselves. But I thought it was interesting that Fez was his buddy / his conscience.
That is super cool. Yeah. Yes. And when you get tired of it, you just leave him at home.
right. And but I wanted to build in this gag. One of the things is he's always like, so are you gonna go? It's like, no, you first. And Fez is always like, no, you go ahead, because Fez can't go anywhere without Morton, right? Because he's just a hat.
Right.
So Fez is always offering Morton to go first, right?
That's cool. Bruce, I've got a couple comments here. Of course, what Dari says is very dope. RB says dope-tastic. Dari says dope-tastic indeed. Very dope-tastic. Bruce says he loves that island. The fake island was great. Hello from New York. Sliding under the radar. Cool. Welcome, Bruce. And then Ross says, yup, the busiest piece of equipment in college was the copier, and you had me at Letraset. Mention a ruling pen, and my mind will be blown.
Right? No. But I used to go in Ontario. I used to go to this place called Curry's. I don't even know if it still exists. Curry's Art Store. And then I was, we'd roll up, and then like Letraset had that thick book of types. So it was all transfer lettering back then. I don't know how old you are, Dan, but yeah.
I didn't do any of that stuff because I didn't go to school. I didn't go to college. I didn't do any art in school. And so I never played with those tools until I got grown. And
that was all independent me. I didn't get any of that stuff from school. I found the Letraset books from, I can't even remember where I got exposure to that, but it was probably pre-high school. But I was super excited to be able to go down and get a sheet. I was like, I got to do the calculations of how many. You get so many letters on a sheet, so you're like, you got to do a certain amount. You're like, how many sheets do I need to make? To get all the letters, because you can run out of A's and then you gotta go back to the store.
Wow.
That was kind of a great world. And then you're like, oh, I got a new burnisher. Oh yeah, the burnishers. You know what I'm saying? You got the letter checks it off. That's some fun stuff. That was back in the day. That was real work.
Right, right. I do remember the real cut and paste because I used the copier a lot, and in order to uh, rework your drawing without having to draw everything all over, you start making copies. You cut out with scissors,
Yeah.
blow up certain parts, move it around. Like, I think I like that. Tape it and all that stuff. So I remember the
Yeah.
real old school cut and paste, but
You get one of those. You get one of those when cut and paste wasn't a keyboard function.
right, yeah, it was not two keys. It was actual scissors,
Yeah,
and
scissors. And then you talk about the day we went in and got the swivel blades.
hmm right,
Swivel
right.
blade.
Guess
So you know what I'm saying? You didn't have to turn your wrist. It would just pivot for you in the shaft. You're like, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's right. Bruce
Yeah.
says, Letra said books, throwback. Misty says, incredible art, just wow. Ken says, wow, also. And Bruce says, all I had was the book and tracing paper. Yes, lots of tracing paper. Tracing paper was the thing, man. Yeah, you
Oh
constantly
yeah.
needed a bit of tracing paper. Mm-hmm.
I did, yeah, for sure. The tracing paper was all the secret. That's how you got stuff done. Especially if
Mm-hmm.
you didn't have to go get a copier immediately.
Yep.
I mean, you gotta trace it out. If you need a reference, you need something, you got to be able to
Yeah.
trace it
That's the
for
old
your
school
own work or some other
layers.
work.
Yeah, that's the old school layers. You do the roughs, put another layer, another tracing paper on top of that, clean it up, another tracing paper on top of that until you got the
Exactly.
drawing. Yeah, yeah. And so
Yeah,
that's
most def. That's why that was my connection. And I got into a little bit of animation because familiarity with onion
mhm.
skinning and that kind of ideas.
Yep.
So I was comfortable cleaning up and doing that because my first job in animation was as a cleanup artist.
Mm.
And then I realized like at some point I don't like drawing the same picture over and over again. I'm out.
Yeah, I have that
I'm done.
problem with comics and animation. I love them. I want to make them. I'm like, oh, I got great ideas, and then you realize you gotta draw it hundreds of times, bro. Like,
Yeah.
dang.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this right here. So this is an Illustrator. I can tell this is like Adobe Illustrator. I see the clean, super clean lines. Um,
Yeah.
uh, this is. I think this is what I like about your work is that it's still clean, but it's very much dynamic. I like it.
I mean, my influences. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead. Sorry to cut you
No,
off,
that
man.
was it. That's it. Go for it, because I want to know more about it. Tell me.
So I mean, growing up, I watched a lot of anime. If I wasn't watching, I didn't watch a lot of Disney,
Mm-hmm.
but I did watch a lot of Warner Brothers, and then when I was growing up. But then in the '80s, it was straight anime, like Invasion, East Coast, right? So Toronto, Mississauga, that's all anime. So every anime from Astro Boy to Robotech to Vanguard Ace to Guy King, you name it, it came out, and it was all day, all anime. It was ridiculous. So I learned to color by watching anime. I
Hmm.
I always spent a lot of time. It's not really copying the anime style wise, although I did do that to a certain extent. But most of my learning came from deconstructing the technique that I saw
Mm-hmm.
happening. So trying to understand what it is, what the effect was that I was getting,
Mm-hmm.
it was making, and then trying to translate that and trying to replicate that idea into my own work.
Right.
I'm not a big fan of copying other people's art. That's
Mm-hmm.
never been because I spent a period doing like getting influenced by that, and I realized that it took me a long time to wash off the influence.
Right. Right. Right.
I mean, so it's like, oh wait, that's just a derivative of what I just looked at for an hour.
Yeah.
So like even to the point where I made a pact with myself, it's like, yo, you're gonna go to the art store and you're just gonna flip through the book. You're not gonna stay and study the page.
Mm-hmm.
You're just gonna flip it, absorb it, flip it, and then move on.
Right.
I mean, so I get the essence, but I don't gotta sit down and get fat from the meal. You know what I mean?
Make
Like that
your
kind of
make your version. That's right. Make your version.
yeah. So all this like
Uh-huh.
lighting studies, like this kind of like I love. We had this conversation before, so I mean, I love doing lighting. So
Mm-hmm.
this kind of idea, I'm obsessed with orbital lighting.
Mm-hmm.
I mean,
Mm-hmm.
so this, there's a planet below this dude.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
So, and I love that idea. And this was a super interesting thing because I found that quote
Hmm.
from Carl Sagan, and then I was just like, I just love the idea of this dude. You couldn't see, and it's actually that picture is actually 3 times wider, so it's very panoramic.
Mm.
It's super ultra panoramic shot, but just him, and then there's a little bit of a haze from the atmosphere below him. But I loved
Mm-hmm.
the idea of him kind of nonchalantly being out there doing some work, and then this little particle of something comes towards him.
Yes. Odari says Robotech. You just hit a nerve. That's my favorite anime series.
Yeah,
Yes,
Robotech is all day. I mean, if I could trade in all of my stuff right now for a Cyclone, I'd be done. That's me. Okay.
That's right. That's right. That's super awesome. But I think that what attracted me to your work is the clean, super clean lines that I see out of Illustrator. And when I started drawing with Illustrator, I love the idea that you can make a line, don't like it, adjust it, move it. Versus before it was traditional. I was a tattoo artist at that time when I was learning Illustrator, and like you do a line on somebody's skin, that's it. It stays there.
It's right.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so Illustrator was mind blowing. It's like, what are you telling me that I don't have to live with that line if I want to adjust it? And then because of the handles, because of the anchor points, is you get these super sharp, clean lines that is like, oh my god. And so looking at your work, is you're one of those artists who I saw the artwork is like, yes, this is what Illustrator can be if you just go hard with it. And now I see like some of the shading is it looks more pixel based, and it's like, man, and D's saying the same thing. Love your work, DaCosta, says D on the chat.
Cheers.
Yes, man, your work is amazing, bro. So tell us about the
Appreciate
apps.
that.
Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. So we got a few minutes left. Tell us about the apps that you're using, and what are you doing with your art where we need to pay attention to when you post on Instagram.
Right now, I mean, the stuff I use all the time is if I'm not doing, like when I use the iPad a lot. So, and it's funny, when I do marker renderings, I actually start digital first because sometimes I'm so wishy-washy about color palettes. It's so easy to experiment on the digital and then drop it into the real thing when I pull out my markers. Then and then
Okay.
and then for the most part, I mean, I think one of the tools I use when I'm using Illustrator, I use Astute Graphics plugins. That was back in the day. I think 2014. I was actually a little tired of Illustrator because there was a lot of clickety click. You know what I mean? And but I think the pen tool. There were a lot of once they bought up Macromedia and Flash, didn't kind of get integrated in the way that I thought it was going to get integrated. There was a lot of frustration on my side because I love. I mean, I'm not one of those dudes who necessarily does the click on a curve shape, do angles, and then I bend out the curves. I like drawing. I pull in Bezier's like real time. So like the big deal for me was Astute Graphics tools. I think I found them back in 2013, 2014. They've got one pen that I love. It's called Dynamic Sketch.
Okay.
And it just lets you draw. It takes the clickety click out of that stuff. I've probably been saying that for 10 years, but that, I mean, it's literally it's a nice tool that lets you draw in Illustrator. I mean, it gives you a lot of control. So that's the thing. I just love doing vector all day long. So that's why my raster work looks a lot like my vector work because I love the clean ideas, the shading, the lighting, all that transitions, the gradients. I mean, a friend of mine likes to tease me all the time because I always talk about this box I did as a cardboard box with these gradient tones as a tutorial, and that's the gradient tones to get cardboard right. It's difficult. I mean, without doing a lot of texturing over top of it. So I love the gradients and love being able to play with those ideas and masking. And then I think I like to pride myself on my ability to make a super clean vector file. So I don't have, do you know J3 Concepts? You look him up. He's awesome. Vector.
Okay. J3 Concepts.
Yeah, J3 Concepts. He does a lot of great vector stuff. I mean, he's one of those artists, influential people who does a style and then everybody just basically mimics that style.
Okay.
I mean, so he's that guy. So he did a lot of really cool character stuff. He's out of Seattle. I don't know if he still lives there. I haven't spoken to him in a lot of years, but working with vector, it's good to work with people like that. So I mean, even he made comments about the way I stack my files, and I spent a lot of time when we put out toys. We put out our first toy, and I had to make a lot of vector files, and also get a lot of artists in as guest artists to do their works on these toys, and just seeing the level of crazy that people work with, because I'm kind of anal about my layers. So because if I give these files to somebody, you know what I mean, if I'm not labeling them and they're not stacked properly, or they're duplicate images locked together, it gets a little crazy, because you get two images on top of each other and they start canceling each other out. Right. It gets a little crazy, and you got to unbreak that stuff. So in an early period, I was like, yo, I gotta check myself before I wreck myself, right? So in that sense, so Illustrator is the thing I use 99% of the time. You know what I mean? So, and then if I'm on the iPad, obviously, I just started kind of breaking into Illustrator. I can't say I have any love for Fresco or any of the new stuff, just because I think that Illustrator, I like the way it works on the desktop, and I understand kind of why where they're going to try to make it for the iPad. But at the end of the day, I just love Illustrator for what it is. I mean, it's a great tool. I don't really have any people are like, oh, you should do some tutorials. I got 5 tricks maybe. Tell you.
We need to know them. We need to know those 5 tricks, because right here, this is what Ken is saying. I didn't know Illustrator was for raster work. I don't think you're saying Illustrator's for raster work, but you're making
I'm not saying Illustrator's for raster work,
right.
but like, if you do it the right way, I mean, funny enough, the Astute Graphics tools, they have some great texture tools that you can really play it. I mean, it's nothing really stops you needing to learn how to craft a shape. So at one point I wanted to be an architect, and then I liked industrial design. So like the industrial design's like, yo, I can just do, before I got into concept stuff, wait, industrial design. So I think I had, because of my ADHD and my other learning disabilities, the math became a complicated issue at the time. I was like, okay, well, wait, industrial design, product design, I could just design a house that doesn't have to really work by the laws of physics. It's going to stand up if I do it in 3D or 2D animation. So that's dope. Right. So I could be an architect. I could be an aircraft engineer. I could do anything, an aerospace engineer. So that was the benefit of having all these interests. So being able to take my passion for that stuff and then turn it into anything I wanted and tell those stories, which is way more interesting to me. At the end of the day, I found it fascinating. So I think, like I was saying, back to the point about the Illustrator, it's just how you combine it with textures is really important. It's like I said, some tools like Astute Graphics are just really, really useful, and it's worth having those in your arsenal. It'll let you go a long way, because there's a lot of stuff that's just really laborious about vector work, and some of it takes a lot of pain out of that process.
Okay. Yep. Well, we're running out of time. Go ahead.
I know we're running out. Yeah, for sure, running out of time. Sorry about that.
Go ahead. You can finish your thought.
No, I was just saying, finish up on the note on the thing that the iPad has been a really great thing in terms of allowing me to let go of some of that the anal retentiveness of vectors.
Right.
I can get obsessed. I can show you. I'll send you some pieces that took me from start to finish 18 hours.
Right.
Or from sketch to finished vector. Like, and then literally, I'm like 18 hours in a sit. Like, I'm not getting up and going to have lunch. You know what I mean? So I did those because they had to be blown up 10 feet tall.
Right.
So all the points had to be connected correctly. You know what I mean?
Yep.
So that was a pretty crazy thing for me. But vector has always been the super satisfying deal. But what allows me to let go of that is drawing on the iPad and just kind of sketching and doing fun stuff, and letting go of the do it 1,000 times, 1,000 layers, and be really anal about it. Just let it happen. So, the raster tool and what the iPad affords, and specifically Procreate, it's not my go-to as the end journey. It's a really great tool for certain things, but Procreate has its issues, with doing final pieces at resolutions that you would normally work at Photoshop, and flexibility.
Right.
But it's a great tool. So that's where I'm at for the most part. So Sketchbook, Illustrator, and Procreate, and then Sketchbook Pro. I mean, any of those kind of classic, simple things. I like to keep it easy.
And Sketchbook, because of the markers. Sketchbook has the markers brushes in.
Yeah, Sketchbook, and then those are my industrial design flavors, like my drawing running shoes and and bikes and cars. So that's kind of it's got automatically. You can do that in anything, but I think it's nice that has an automatic tone of that kind of industrial design, product design
Mm-hmm.
feel. You know what I mean?
All right. Well, cool. Well, thank everybody for the comments and questions. Um, uh, we're gonna end this stream with the last question by Rob. Before I ask the question, go ahead and find DaCosta on Instagram, Chocolate Soup. The links are in the description of the video. Go ahead and follow, because starting at least for well, because on Saturday, DaCosta and I are going to be streaming live on Instagram. So you got to follow Chocolate Soup to get the notification that we're live. It's this Saturday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, 8 p.m. Pacific, and so we're
8
gonna
a.m. 8 a.m.
8 a.m.
Pacific.
Pacific. Sorry, and so we're going
Yeah.
to we're going to stream on Instagram, and we're going to share the screen, so you'll see us both together. And so drawing, and so I worked on a fresh, brand new drawing that no one has seen. I think I posted a sneak peek and the share your art on Discord. So come on through. Make sure you follow Chocolate Soup on Instagram. And Bruce did say I'm sure DaCosta is familiar with Mexifunk, and he said Mexi, and I was like, what is Mexi? But I know Mexifunk. You heard of Mexifunk, DaCosta?
Oh, Mexifunk?
Mexifunk, yeah, like Mexican funk. Mexifunk. His name is Orlando Arocena. This guy, look him up, man. Oh my gosh, Mexifunk is a type of artist who uses Illustrator as like his own, like if it was raster art. This dude can use Illustrator like nobody's business. And I noticed him many years ago when opening Illustrator, his image was popping up. This is the first few years where Illustrator was adding an image to the startup screen. Oh my gosh, I was like, what the, like, somebody can do this with Illustrator? And so I've been following his work ever since. That dude got skills.
Stuff for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah, there's a lot of crazy people doing things with vector, like the meshes, and then bending meshes and doing crazy stuff
Yeah,
with the
insane.
gradient meshes. And I'm like, wow, how are you even getting that done? So I mean, my stuff is a lot of Gaussian blurs and a little bit of gradient meshes here and there.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
and yeah, that style is amazing. But I want to make sure, for me, I love the look of kind of a super clean. And then sometimes I really like to play with the background to make sure that looks more separated and rastered. You know what I mean? So that's because I like that idea of like the anime, right? So anime is always the cells, the characters are always sharper and clean, and then the background is painted. Kind of, there's always that nice separation. So I love that style. But there are a lot of artists. I'm following this artist now, so that's great stuff.
Yes, check them out.
Thank you for that, for sure.
You're welcome.
All right, we're gonna come through on Saturday for the color jam sessions. Make sure that'll be good to hang out, and it's the same kind of, it's just like this. We're gonna be talking creative life. Mike, Dan and I will be doing all the coloring, the comic book coloring book flavor.
There you go. Awesome. All right, so this is the end. I'm gonna let DaCosta take us away and finish the stream by answering this question. What would you say was your biggest challenge in moving from traditional to digital? And you have a minute to tell us how you get past that.
I had no problem at all. I used to do no, honestly, the whole thing is I used to do a lot of airbrushing, and then so airbrushing, and I was so happy to not have paint under my fingernails. Done.
Right. Okay, there you go. Yes. Clean hands.
Clean hands, man. Clean hands.
All right, everybody. Thank you for hanging
power
out.
Button, it's off.
There you
All
go.
right.
That's it. Thank you. See y'all next time. I'm DTM. That is Chocolate Soup, aka DaCosta Bayley. Follow him on Instagram, and I will see you guys Saturday. Peace out. Catch you on the flip side. Peace.
Thank you.